The medical bay smelled wrong. Dr. Threlvik had worked in sterile environments for 17 cycles, and he'd never quite gotten used to the synthetic mint odor that human facilities pumped through their ventilation systems. It was supposed to be calming. Instead, it made his secondary nostrils itch. He adjusted his optical lenses, the 3 pairs clicking into focus, as he reviewed the data pad in his primary manipulator. Patient intake form. Standard procedure. Another human requiring clearance for off-world deployment. Normally, this took 6 minutes. Fill out the forms, run the scans, stamp the approval, next patient. Except this one had a file notation that made his tertiary heart skip a beat. Classified. Deathworld Protocol Alpha. Oh, fantastic, Threlvik muttered, his translator chip rendering the sarcasm perfectly. Just what I needed on a Tuesday. The door hissed open, and a human walked in. Male. Average height by their standards, which meant absurdly tall by any reasonable species measurement. Dark hair, casual posture, wearing the standard grey jumpsuit of the Terran Expeditionary Corps. He was smiling. Why were they always smiling? Good morning, Doc, the human said, extending a hand. I'm Marcus Webb. Here for my medical clearance. Threlvik stared at the offered appendage. Right. The hand-crushing ritual they called a handshake. He extended his primary manipulator, bracing himself for the inevitable squeeze that would make his joints ache for an hour. Surprisingly, Webb's grip was gentle. Sit, Threlvik gestured to the exam platform, with his secondary manipulator, while keeping the data pad raised in his primary. This should be routine. Medical history, physical scan, pathogen screening. Standard deployment preparation. Sure thing, Webb hopped onto the platform with disturbing ease, the kind of effortless movement that suggested his bone density was probably illegal in 7 systems. Threlvik pulled up the questionnaire. All right, Marcus Webb. Let's start simple. Any current medications? Nope. Allergies? Not to anything I've found yet. Threlvik's optical lenses narrowed. Yet? Webb shrugged. I mean, I haven't tried everything. The universe is big, right? Lots of things I haven't been exposed to. That is technically accurate, Threlvik conceded, marking the field. Prior surgeries. Appendix removal when I was 12. Broke my left femur at 19, got that fixed. 3 cracked ribs at 24. Dislocated shoulder at 26. The doctor's primary manipulator paused over the data pad. You are 32 cycles, yes. 32 years, yeah. You have sustained significant skeletal damage at regular intervals throughout your adult life. Oh, those. Webb laughed, actually laughed. Nah, that's just normal stuff. Sports injuries, hiking accident, motorcycle thing. Nothing serious. Nothing serious. The human had systematically destroyed and rebuilt portions of his skeleton, and classified it as nothing serious. Right, Threlvik said slowly. Let's move on. Chronic conditions. None. Family history of illness. Grandpa had diabetes. Uncle Jack has high blood pressure. Pretty standard. Threlvik made notes, then accessed the secondary file, the one with the classification header. His bioluminescent patches flickered nervously, cycling through purple and amber. I need to ask some additional questions. For the protocol. Shoot. Have you ever been exposed to class 4 or higher radiation? Webb tilted his head, thinking. Define exposed. Define, what do you mean, define exposed? Either you have encountered dangerous radiation, or you have not. Well, I worked at a solar farm for 2 years. Does sunlight count? Threlvik's translator chip made a sound it had never made before, something between a whimper and static. Your star emits class 3 radiation. You are telling me you voluntarily bathed in stellar radiation for employment. I mean, I wore sunscreen. You wore a chemical barrier. SPF 50. Sometimes SPF 70 if it was really bright. The doctor's tertiary heart was definitely palpitating now. He made a note. A long note. A note that became a paragraph. Continue. Have you been exposed to environmental toxins? What kind? Any kind. Webb scratched his chin. I grew up near a factory. Old paint plant, got shut down when I was a kid. We used to play in the creek downstream. Also, I lived in a major city for 8 years, so, you know, air pollution. Did some plumbing work in old buildings too. Probably got some lead exposure there. Lead. You were exposed to heavy metal toxins. Yeah, but I wore gloves. Mostly. Mostly. Well, sometimes they ripped. Threlvik set down the data pad. He needed both primary manipulators free to press against his cranial ridge. He could feel a headache forming, right between his main optical sensors. Mr. Webb. I am going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer honestly. Are you currently dying? Webb blinked. What? No. I feel great. You have been exposed to stellar radiation, heavy metals, industrial toxins, and have sustained multiple catastrophic skeletal failures. By all medical logic, you should be dying. Dude, I'm from Earth. That's just, like, existing there. Yes, Threlvik said quietly, his vocal synthesizer dropping an octave. That is the problem. He pulled up the restricted section of the file. The walls of the medical bay seemed to close in as lines of text scrolled past. Incident reports. Survival statistics. Adaptation rates. The file was 700 pages long. 700 pages. It says here, Threlvik began, his voice careful, that you survived an encounter with a crash hunting party on Sigma 7. Oh, yeah. That was hairy. But I had my survival kit, and I found a cave system. Just had to outlast them. You outlasted a crash hunting party. They are pursuit predators. They do not stop tracking prey for 30 solar rotations. I was there for 42 days. Threlvik's bioluminescent patches went completely dark, then surged brilliant white. You survived for 42 days. In a cave. On a Class 9 hostile planet. Being hunted by apex predators. The bugs were the worst part, honestly. These things the size of my hand that tried to burrow into my skin. Had to keep burning them off. Burning. You self-administered thermal cauterization. Well, yeah. Couldn't let them lay eggs in me. That would have sucked. The doctor scrolled further. It also says you were part of the retrieval team on Station Gamma 4 after the atmospheric processor failed. Right, that was rough. We had about 20 minutes of oxygen, and a 6-hour repair job. How did you survive? Shallow breathing. Meditation techniques. You'd be surprised how long you can stretch air if you don't panic. The Draxxian technicians on that team required full respiratory support. 3 of them died. Yeah. Webb's expression finally sobered. That was hard. But somebody had to fix the processor. Hundreds of people on that station. Threlvik scrolled again. And again. Each entry was more horrifying than the last. Survived decompression exposure. Recovered from Rigelian blood fever without treatment. Walked 15 kilometers with a punctured lung. Negotiated peace with a hostile insectoid hive using only hand gestures. This file, Threlvik said, hearing his own voice shake slightly, reads like a list of near-death experiences. I mean, yeah, I've had some close calls. But that's why I'm good at my job. Experience, you know. Your job. Which is hazardous environment specialist. I go places that are too dangerous for, Webb trailed off, seeming to realize mid-sentence how that sounded. Too dangerous for anyone sane, Threlvik finished. Too dangerous for species that did not evolve in a hell of gravity wells and poison atmospheres and predatory ecosystems. Earth isn't that bad. Your planet has a 23-degree axial tilt that causes seasonal climate catastrophes. Your atmosphere is 21% oxidizing gas. Your gravity is 0.98 standard, which means you are all walking around with permanent weight training. Your ocean covers 70% of the surface, and is filled with venomous creatures. Your land hosts apex predators on every continent. And you have weather systems that routinely generate wind speeds capable of destroying structures. Webb smiled again. That infuriating, indestructible smile. Yeah, but we have pizza. Threlvik stared at the human for a full 10 seconds, his 3 sets of optical lenses cycling through different focus ranges, as if hoping a different perspective might make this conversation make sense. It did not. Pizza, he repeated flatly. And coffee. Don't forget coffee. The doctor's translator Chip struggled with the emphasis. You are listing food items as justification for surviving on a planet that actively attempts to kill its inhabitants. Well, yeah. You gotta have something to look forward to. Webb swung his legs casually, heels thumping against the exam platform, in a rhythm that was probably supposed to be cheerful, but just made Threlvik's headache worse. The doctor returned to the file, scrolling with increasing horror. It says here you have a certification in explosive ordnance disposal. Oh, that's actually pretty safe if you know what you're doing. Safe. You defuse devices specifically designed to cause maximum destruction, and you classify this as safe. Compared to my last girlfriend, yeah, totally safe. Threlvik's bioluminescent patches flickered confused yellow. I do not understand that reference. Doesn't matter. What else you got in there? What else? What else? Threlvik scrolled through sections labeled biological hazard exposure, extreme temperature survival, high-pressure environment adaptation, and his personal favorite, miscellaneous incidents that should have been fatal. You were bitten by a Draxxian swamp viper. Yep. Hurt like hell. Swelled up real bad. Draxxian swamp viper venom has a mortality rate of 99.8% for carbon-based life. I'm a 0.2%er then. Always been an overachiever. You received treatment. Oh, no. We were 3 days from medical. Just had to ride it out. Threlvik's primary manipulator trembled, nearly dropping the data pad. You rode out Draxxian venom. You simply endured neurotoxins that liquefy internal organs. I mean, I hallucinated for like 48 hours and definitely thought I was gonna die. But then I didn't. Body's pretty good at fighting stuff off if you give it a chance. The doctor had to sit down. Fortunately, there was a hovering support cushion nearby, designed for his species' unique skeletal structure. He collapsed onto it, all 4 of his limbs suddenly feeling weak. Mr. Webb, I have been a medical professional for 17 cycles. I have treated 63 species across 12 systems. I have seen soldiers, explorers, and miners. I have patched up injuries from combat, accidents, and disease. But I have never, in my entire career, seen a medical file like yours. Is that good or bad? Yes. Webb laughed again. The sound was somehow worse now that Threlvik knew exactly what this human had survived. It was the laugh of something that had looked death in the face repeatedly and decided it was only mildly inconvenient. Look, Doc, I know humans are kind of weird compared to most species. We figured that out pretty quick after first contact. But I'm honestly pretty normal by Earth standards. You should see the mountain climbers. Or the cave divers. Or the people who do that thing where they jump off cliffs with fabric wings. Why, Threlvik asked, his vocal synthesizer barely a whisper, why would they do that? For fun. Fun. They risk death for entertainment. I mean, yeah. Life's short, you know. Gotta make it interesting. Your species has an average lifespan of 80 years. You are biologically immortal by most standards, yet you actively seek activities that might reduce this. Webb shrugged. Quality over quantity, man. Threlvik pulled up another section of the file. Medical scans. Baseline human biology readings. He'd reviewed thousands of these over the years, but he looked at them with new context now. Your resting heart rate is 58 beats per minute. I run a lot. Your bone density is, this cannot be correct. This reading suggests your skeletal structure could withstand direct kinetic impact equivalent to a Class 2 vehicle collision. I mean, I've never been hit by a car, but I did fall off a roof once. Just bruises. Just bruises. From a 3-story fall. Well, I landed in some bushes. That helped. The scans showed more impossibilities. Muscle fiber density that exceeded military-grade combat species. A cardiovascular system that could apparently function under extreme stress for extended periods. A nervous system that processed pain, but didn't shut down from it. And an immune system that looked like it had been designed by a paranoid weapons engineer. Your white blood cell count is astronomical. Is it? I hardly ever get sick. Yes, I am beginning to understand why. Your immune system appears to be in a constant state of warfare readiness. Earth's got a lot of germs. You adapt or you sneeze a lot. Threlvik set the data pad down again, this time more gently, as if it might explode. I need you to understand something, Mr. Webb. The classification on your file. Deathworld Protocol Alpha. That is not a casual designation. That is a warning label. It means that someone, somewhere, decided that humans require special handling because you are, by definition, dangerous. Dangerous. I'm just a guy. You are a representative of a species that evolved on a planet so hostile that your survival mechanisms exceed the combat capabilities of most military species. You heal from injuries that would kill others. You endure toxins that should liquefy you. You survive environments that lack basic necessities. And you do all of this while considering it normal. Webb scratched the back of his neck, looking uncomfortable for the first time. When you put it like that, it sounds pretty intense. Because it is intense. Do you know what happened the first time humans joined a mixed-species mining operation? No. 3 humans volunteered to work in a collapsed tunnel section to rescue trapped workers. The section was flooded with methane gas, had structural instability, and was at risk of secondary collapse. Every other species evacuated. The humans went in anyway. Did they get everyone out? Yes. All 17 trapped workers survived. And do you know what the humans said when asked why they risked their lives? Webb smiled slightly. Somebody had to. Exactly that. Somebody had to. As if throwing themselves into lethal danger was simply the obvious choice. I mean, it kind of was. You can't just leave people to die. Most species can. Most species do. Survival instinct is a powerful thing. Sure, but so is helping people. Threlvik's bioluminescent patches cycled through several colors before settling on a defeated blue. And that is why humans are terrifying. Not because you are cruel or violent, though you can be both. But because you are helpful. You run toward danger instead of away from it. You endure suffering to help others. You treat mortality as an inconvenience rather than an absolute. You make us sound like crazy people. By the standards of every other species in known space. You are. There was a long pause. Webb looked down at his hands, turning them over as if seeing them for the first time. So, do I pass the medical screening or not? Threlvik picked up the data pad. He scrolled through all 700 pages again. The incidents, the survivals, the impossible biology. Then he pulled up the final form, the one that would either approve or deny Webb's deployment clearance. His manipulator hovered over the decision field. Can I ask you something? Threlvik said quietly. Sure. Why do you do this? You could have a safe job. A comfortable life. Why volunteer for hazardous environment work? Webb thought about it for a moment, his expression serious. I guess because I can. Not everyone can survive the rough stuff. But I can. And if I can, and someone needs help out there, then I should. Right? Even if it kills you eventually. Eventually something's gonna kill me anyway. Might as well make the time count. Threlvik looked at this human, this impossibly fragile and impossibly resilient creature, and made his decision. He pressed the approval icon. You pass. All medical clearances approved. Webb grinned, sliding off the exam platform. Thanks, document. I promise I'll try not to end up in a medical bay out there. You will absolutely end up in a medical bay. Probably multiple times. But yes, you will survive it. Because you are human, and apparently that means basic biology is merely a suggestion for your species. I'll take that as a compliment. It was not intended as one, but I suppose it works. Threlvik stood, his support cushion bobbing away. One more thing, Mr. Webb. Yeah. When you inevitably return from this deployment with some new horrifying injury or survival story, please see a different doctor. My cardiac systems cannot handle another session like this. Webb laughed, extending his hand again. This time, Threlvik shook it without hesitation, accepting the brief discomfort as a small price for having survived this consultation. As the human left, whistling cheerfully, Threlvik collapsed back onto his support cushion. He pulled up his personal log and began recording. Medical note, day 47. Have completed examination of human subject Marcus Webb. All biological readings exceed safety parameters. All survival history defies medical probability. Clearance approved per Deathworld Protocol Alpha. Recommendation for future staff, increase hazard pay for any assignments involving human patients. Secondary recommendation, stock more of the calming incense. The mint is not strong enough. Nothing is strong enough. End log. He closed the file, watching as the classification warning blinked one final time, before sealing. Classified. Deathworld Protocol Alpha. Somewhere in the facility, another human was probably doing something inadvisable and surviving it. Threlvik decided he needed a very long break.